I'm often asked what's the best way to do this? Best way to start your song? I think the best way is whatever works for you, really, though. Whatever inspires you and kickstarts that first rush of creative excitement. I suppose you could say do the fun thing first, really. Having said that, sometimes it's good to try switching it up. For example, if you always start with the drums, then try starting with the chords or a sample. You never know what starting point might click with you until you try it. Essentially, there are no rules here, so you can start with the drop or the breakdown. Either one first, it doesn't matter. Like I said, just go with that initial creative vibe. If the first thing you started writing sounds more like a drop, then you're starting with the drop. Or if it sounds more like a breakdown, then you're starting there. You can start with any instrument or sample you like. As a drummer, I used to always start with the drums, as that was the easiest part for me. These days I prefer to start with the chords or find inspiration in some kind of sample. You see, I can hear the drums in my head anyway, so I don't feel it's important to record them yet. I'd rather experiment with the musical components first. Depending on what I do with the music, I'm confident I'll always come up with a matching drum part. On the flip side, if I record the drums first instead, then I have just kind of like limited my options for what is possible with the melodic parts. That's just my method, though. You go with whatever works for you. I'm just going to suggest a bunch. Okay, experiment with your available instruments and samples. This is a common way all of us kickstart a song. You pull up some synths and samples and play around with something until it sounds cool. It'll give you an idea of what to do next. This can be good when you're open to writing whatever and interested to see what comes out. But sometimes I like to choose a certain synth or drum machine that I don't normally use and make that a start point kind of challenge. I'll look for what makes this particular instrument special and focus on that. For example, if it's an analog style synth like Diva, then I'll try and make the most analog feeling sounds possible. Ones that only it can create. Sometimes I'm even inspired by equipment I don't own. I've seen videos on YouTube of drum machines by Electron and other companies and noticed they had a unique workflow. They use a lot of parameter locking and odd length patterns, conditional trigs and things. I found that inspiring, so I tried to emulate that with the equipment I had available at the time, just using Ableton and stuff too. Be inspired by your favorite songs. This might be one of my most used starting methods, I think. I'd hear a song that I love and I think, I want to write something like that, or I wish I wrote that, you know? Not exactly the same, but something that embodies the feeling and vibe. Often it might just be a part of it too, like the drop or the breakdown. Sometimes I would like to write a song that feels like the drop of one song, but the breakdown of another song. Other times it might be more of a genre blend. I might want to capture the feeling of a deep house song, but give it a big room vibe as well. If you're ever staring at a blank screen and wondering what to write, just listen to some of your favorite songs and ask yourself, what is it that I like about this? Then put that in your song. Like I mentioned, it will likely be a blend. You might like the bass style from one song, the drums from another, and use all those things as inspiration and write a track that contains as many of the things that you love as possible. Here, let me show you an example. Alright, here's an example of being inspired by some of your favorite songs to write your own original song. This is super fun to do, especially if you've got a bit of a creative block and you may be looking for a different way to start, or if you're not sure how to start your songs. Maybe if you just want to make sure that your song encapsulates a lot of the things you love about your favorite songs. People are often hesitant to do this because they feel like they're stealing too much, but trust me, by the time you finish the song, it's going to sound totally different. So here's a couple I pulled in, some songs I really like from different styles. There's an old one here from Tangerine Dream. There's one from Jose Gonzalez, like an acoustic track. There's like a techno track from Suara. And sort of more almost African feeling tech house track from Antium. So let's go through the different bits and what I like about them. What I'm going to do is remake them in my own way. Start by copying, and then we embellish and rechange it from there. So if this was the Tangerine Dream one, I love that main riff in it. So I recreated that here. I just worked out the same MIDI, did that. If you're comfortable with writing stuff like that, you can, like you play keys or anything, you're going to figure that out pretty quickly. If not, just do something close. It doesn't have to be the same because you're going to change it anyway. So don't worry if you can't get this perfect. It's actually kind of good if you don't get it right. Okay, then in the Jose Gonzalez one, I really like the way there's this kind of descending line in the chorus. So slow, but so I replayed that in here. So slow, but and I've done it with like a bass synth. I mean, that's not even, there's not even a synth in that song too. So there's another great reason you can get ideas for melodies and things from songs that are nothing like your genre, which is a good thing to do. In this Suara, this Dash song, this techno one here, I love the polyrhythm. A polyrhythm, well, it's not really a polyrhythm, it's a, I suppose it is in a way. It's a different length rhythm to the rest of the song, so rather than being 4/4, it repeats quicker. It's the bit that goes ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. So I've got that replayed here. And that's something interesting I'll share more about later too, where I'm, this pattern length is super short. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 16th notes long, and you can see it looping through there. I love stuff like that. Okay, and then the other one, I love the drums. The shakers and everything. So I didn't worry about the rest of it. I just thought I just want some cool shakers like that and a kick. So that's what I came up with. All right, and let's stick it all together and see what we get. I've put this a little bit together already over here, and I've put some of them in the same key. I noticed that the Jose one ended on G down there, so it's quite likely this is in G. So I shifted up the Tangerine Dream one, so that would be in G as well. Did I? Yeah. Working well together. Obviously that's still too similar to the original, but we're going to change that. Then I've also got the drums over here too. Let's try them with that polyrhythm one. I'm not using that, I'm using just this stuff. Oh yeah, what's enough? Works well with the bass there too, actually. Okay, oh yeah, actually I already changed that one a tiny bit. So this was the original polyrhythm, going F, D, D, and I just took exactly the same thing and just made it go 3 different notes. Kept the rhythm, because that was the bit that inspired me the most. So usually I change one thing, either the rhythm or the pitch of the notes. So we've changed that one, that's a little bit more interesting. How about we do the same for the main Tangerine Dream one and get that more original too, because you're probably wondering, like, that still sounds a lot like the original there. So here's some quick simple things to do. Try changing the start point. So rather than starting there, maybe start here. Okay, then we could change, we'll just fold the notes up this so we know all these are the notes available within this kind of pattern. What about we shift some of them around, so we move them up and down. I'm just going to even just do this randomly. Let's put that one down there. Maybe this. Hey, that works already. Let's extend that out. I could make that even more different if I needed to, but it's already kind of different enough. Real quickly, I got a good start to a song there where I can get in and really customize all those bits more, make them even more me, but I love them from the start because they remind me of my favorite songs, and it got me over that hump of going, oh, what am I going to write today? You know, where should I start? You know, just start by blatantly copying. Don't worry, it'll end up different in the end. Be inspired by a live show, even an imaginary one. This is also a common one for me. When I'm watching another DJ play in a club, I'll get hit with songwriting inspiration, ideas and things, not just from the song they chose to play, but from the experience too. The way the people reacted, the feeling in the club, the whole thing. I usually write a note about this so I don't forget, just in my phone or something. Then I try to recreate that feeling in a song later on. I write something that feels like the way I felt when I was there experiencing it. Funny thing is, it doesn't even have to be real. There's been times when I've done this based on an imaginary club. In fact, it was when I did my remix of Shakedown. It was a song, my first song I think that ended up becoming my first #1 on Beatport. Not my first record, but the first time I hit #1 on the front page of Beatport. And it turned out to be the highest selling record on Beatport for that year too. So what was I imagining? The song was for a Spanish label. So I was imagining, and I was living in Australia at the time, and I was imagining something in Ibiza. I'd never been there before at that time. I was just imagining the vibe, like how cool it must be, what the music would sound like, how it would feel. I was probably completely wrong, but it made me it set an image in my mind and made me write something, and it led me to my first #1 record. So don't discount your imagination. Okay, be inspired by life and art. This is also about feeling. Life and love are an obvious one, but sometimes you'll feel something when you look at a certain thing, like a photograph, movies, even things that are well designed, you know. These can and have inspired music for me before as well. The key to this is to tap into how it makes you feel and write a song that feels like that too. Is it dark, melancholy, optimistic, motivating, complex, tense, etc.? All of these things can also be expressed in music. Remember to pay attention to how you feel about the art and your life you see around you. All right, keep a list of potential song ideas or concepts as well. I've been doing this one for a long time actually. This is really handy for those times when you just don't know what to write. So whenever I have an idea for a song I'd like to write, I put it on my list. Like I was saying before in the club example, I like to put it on my phone as I always have it on me. It might be something like, write a song like so-and-so, combine tribal and trap, bootleg this old song. Or even a more detailed theme like my song Helium, when I did back in 2010 or something. That started out as a concept that I thought of at an after party one time. I was thinking about how interesting it was that alcohol was accepted and other drugs like marijuana and things at the time, you know, were not. It seemed like there was, this was mostly by chance, like someone was making money from it, so they approved it and shunned all the other things. So I was like, imagine a world where it was the opposite, where drinking was illegal and after work everyone did something else. Like at the time we thought it would be funny if it was whippets. So that would be crazy, right? In an alternative universe, maybe that's happening right now. I don't know. So I ended up writing a track about this weird concept. And it was with Anthony Paul, which you might know as, he writes today as Hook and Sling. We even did our own vocals too, but in keeping with this theme. So we breathed in helium to match it and then sung it. So we had these crazy high-pitched voices, and at the end of the sentence they'd start to slowly lower down in pitch as the helium was wearing off. Then you'd hear us rustling with a balloon and taking another breath. It was hilarious, super fun. Although for health reasons I can't really recommend ever doing that. It did start to hurt our lungs a bit after a few takes. We continued the theme and used recordings of handling the balloons as well in our beats. We chopped them up into percussive type sounds. Essentially what I'm getting at here is that there was this theme, there was a concept before a single note was even played. We even went on to shoot a music video for this actually. You can check it out if you Google Bass Clef Helium. You know what? Here, I'll show you a snippet of it.
Yeah, it's all good on Helium. You're understood on Helium. We'll be your friends on Helium until the end. You're so popular on Helium, just like a star on Helium. Move your body on Helium, closer to me. Girls and guys might tell you lies. They'll take you home to play alone. You might get naked and play in bed. More than a pair Well, it's fun to share. On helium. On helium. On helium.
So you don't have to always have such a story or concept ready before you write a track, but it's not impossible either. Write down those crazy ideas. Think outside the box. You never know what might translate well. These kind of themes make songs unique and memorable. Also, if you get bored or lose that creative drive, just change something about your song, or everything even. It's changing something that will reignite that creativity. Sometimes if a song just isn't working, I'll remix it. Even if it's my own original song, I'll pretend it was written by someone else and remix it. I'll take the best bits and reinterpret them in a way that suits my style and taste, so it's more in line with what I wish I was writing.